Hey, welcome back to another episode of Parker's Pensées. This is a podcast where we explore thoughts in philosophy, theology, nature, and life. I love thinking about cool stuff, so come think with me. Today's episode is another in the life category. This category gets the shaft a lot, man. We don't talk a ton about life. It's a ton about philosophy, a ton about theology. We've been amping up the science and stuff lately, but practical life wisdom, all that good stuff, that's on the table. So here we go. We're doing a life one today. I have my tattooer, Emil. I always say it wrong, but he also goes by Noodles. I call him Noodles. And this dude has done my tats, two of the three. They're awesome. I'll show you guys a better one, a better angle on that in a little bit. But before we jump in, start talking about philosophy of tattoos, the history of tattoos, how Noodles got into it. I just want to thank the Patreon supporters. You guys are awesome. More and more of you are joining. It's really encouraging. Like I've said before, I want to do this full time. I want to travel around and go to people's offices, go to people's businesses, and interview them there in person. And you guys are making that happen. So if you've benefited from this podcast, please consider joining my Patreon team. Become a patron. You can find the link in the description. Another way to support the podcast: subscribe on YouTube. That stuff helps. You can turn on the notification bell so you see all the new episodes. And then this really helps a ton with all the podcast audio stuff. If you go to Apple Podcasts and leave me a 5-star review and comment as well, that'll go a long way. So thank you for all your support, and please continue doing so. It's awesome. So let's not talk anymore about me or any of that stuff. Let's bring Noodles in and talk tats. Noodles, man, thanks so much for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so just as we get in here, we were just talking about your name, which is fantastic. The whole thing is Emilion. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And you're the name of your company is Noodles. Is it Noodles Parlor?
It's Noodles Tattoo Shop. Yeah.
Tattoo shop. Okay. So,
Yeah.
dude, I've known you as Noodles, but then sometimes I'll be in the shop and people are like, "Oh, that's Emil or that's Emil," and I'm all confused all the time. Where does Noodles come from? Where'd that name come from?
It's about 20 years old. It came from the first tattoo shop that I landed a job in. It was, the guys always have to kind of razz the new kid.
Yeah.
And it just came about one day when I wasn't listening to what my boss was telling me, and I was, paying attention to something else. And he goes, "Listen to me. What are you, a noodle?" I go, "What?" And he's like, "Noodles. I'm going to call you Noodles." And I go, "Yeah, haha, yeah, okay." So about a half hour later, someone calls and asks for me, and they can't pronounce my name. They're like, "I think his name's Emo." And he goes, "Oh, you mean Noodles?" "Yeah, he's here, but I'm not going to let you talk to him unless you refer to him as Noodles." And
Nice.
so what he did was he just kept getting people to call, or he kept getting people to say Noodles to ask for me over the phone. Otherwise, he wouldn't let people talk to me. I don't know if I explained that right, but yeah, basically it's just no one could talk to me unless they referred to me as Noodles. And then, what am I supposed to say? He's the boss kind of guy.
Right.
And, eventually it just stuck. And so that went on for about 3 years at the first shop that I was at. And this is from 2000 till about 2003. And then I went to another shop in 2004. And when I got to the new shop in 2004, or the following shop, the owner of that shop said, "So Noodles, they call you Noodles, huh? Do you want to go with your real name? You're starting a new chapter. You want to go with your real name, or you want to stick with Noodles?" And I thought to myself, well, there's nobody else in the area named Noodles doing tattoos, and it's probably good for business. So people remember the name, because I had just established an entire client base over 3 years when I was starting out. And I was like, well, I should probably just keep it so people can find me.
Yeah.
And, it just stuck.
And here we are, man.
And here we are. And then, yeah. So
that's awesome.
So,
yeah, keep going.
So weird enough, I was going to name my shop. I opened my own tattoo shop in 2013, and I was going to name it something else, which was kind of a lame name. And the one of the other tattooers who apprenticed under the guy who gave me that nickname, I still keep in contact with, and I have a lot of respect for him. He's a very bright and intelligent guy, and I look up to him a lot. We don't talk much. We're not real close, but I still call him and ask him for advice on things, and he helps me navigate certain waters in the tattoo world on occasion. I called him up and I said, "Hey, I'm going to open up this shop. What do you think of this name?" And he goes, "I don't like it." And I said, "Okay, what should I name it?" He goes, "Well, you've been going as Noodles for, I don't know, 15 years. He's like, just name it Noodles Tattoo." And then, a light bulb went off. It's like, why didn't I think of that? And that was it. So funny enough, the guy who gave me the name's apprentice told me to name the shop that. So it's just kind of,
it's like a whole conspiracy, man, to turn you into Noodles. That's
it really
awesome.
is. It really is. But Noodles have taken off the past few years. I mean, people are really getting into ramen and udon, and I mean,
That's
it's
true,
just,
man.
I
Yeah,
see
you really.
tons of noodle art everywhere, and I mean, just a few years ago, I had a couple customers ask me for noodle tattoos where, they would take like an image and say, "Oh, can you put this in a bowl of noodles for me? And you should do more of that stuff." And I go, it's kind of lame, but actually that's not a bad idea considering everybody these days needs like their shtick,
Right.
everybody needs their thing. And I was like, that's actually a pretty cool idea. So I started investigating that, and I started just doing sketches and drawings with that. And then I had more people ask for them, and it started resonating with people. So I don't do that many because there's as much as I did the past couple of years, just because I haven't really kept up with it. But I still occasionally get people ask me for those.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was Googling your shop to grab some pictures and stuff today for a thumbnail, and I just typed in Noodles tattoo, and there's a bunch of just ramen tattoos everywhere. And I was like, this is new to me. I didn't know that, but I guess you're right. There's a upcoming trend. I might have to get one of those, man. We'll put a bullfrog in like a bowl of noodles or something. That'd be fantastic.
Oh yeah, actually, there's a I don't know what the name of it is, but there's a Japanese bullfrog that there's like a story behind it, and I don't know what the name is. I don't know the exact meaning of the story yet, but I've just heard pieces of it where the bullfrog has something to do with luck and money, and
Okay.
which I don't believe in luck, but it throws up gold coins. So
Dang.
you'll see some Japanese frogs that have like gold coins around them with some fire around them, like these big cool bullfrogs. So
That's awesome. That's literally my bullfrogs coughed up gold coins for us. That's how I paid for my wife's wedding ring and stuff. That's from the bullfrog video.
I
Dang.
was just kind of connecting those two when I said
Yeah.
that.
That's
Cool.
fantastic, man.
Yeah.
Well, so when did you get your first tattoo?
I did my first tattoo on myself when I was
Wow.
probably 14 or 15 years old. And I went to the local art store and I bought some India ink, and I found some silk thread in my mom's sewing box. And I went to the library and got every book on tattooing I could find. And I saw, some of the old, like Japanese and Borneo pictures, like the old Captain Cook engravings. And what they had is they would have a series of needles wrapped in thread. So I go, oh, I could do this. I mean, guys in jail can do it. I can
Yeah.
do this.
Yeah.
And so I got some information, just looked at a lot of pictures, and I wrapped the needle with some silk thread. I threw it in some alcohol for a little bit, and I proceeded to put on some music. I can't remember what I was listening to in my room, and I took a bottle cap. I filled it up with India ink, and I started poking a little. I proceeded to poke a cross on my wrist. And the reason I did a cross was because I knew that if I had a cross engraved on me, so it was a cross. My parents would be, wouldn't be mad at me.
Yeah.
Because my parents are very, are very, faithful people.
Mm-hmm.
So I did a cross.
Do you still have that? Did that last?
No, I got it covered up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What did your dad was a Orthodox priest, right?
Correct. He was an Orthodox priest. He became an Orthodox priest in 1982, right after I was born. he, yeah, is a priest.
Yeah. So I mean, so how did he feel about that cross? Did it work to like you thought, or was he still
Uh,
angry?
he wasn't angry. He
Okay.
was he was surprised, interested, curious, supportive, upset, not sure how to handle it as a father,
Yeah.
and being the youngest of four, pretty much just didn't care at that point.
Dude,
You
I'm the
know,
youngest of four. I used to get away with murder. Yeah.
yeah. So, and he also, the way that he supported us was he was a Chicago public school teacher on the
That's right.
south side of Chicago for over 30 years.
Yeah.
So he was a tough guy.
Seriously, man. Yeah, both of those. Jeez. So, so you got your first, like, what do you remember why you did that? Like, why? It seems like you were born to do tattoos from that story and stuff, man. Like, why were you like, I'm just gonna go do it myself? I would never do that. I'd be so terrified. Why'd you think I'm gonna go tattoo myself?
Man, I was just fascinated with it.
Hmm.
From the earliest age, my father used to take me to Cicero, and he would also, okay, so I used to get my hair cut by these guys who came back from the war. They owned a
Hmm.
barber shop in Cicero, a couple of, kind of, you know, you're kind of Italian guys, you're tough Italian guys.
For sure.
One guy had a hula girl on his arm, the other guy had a ship on his arm. His name was Mr. Martone.
Hmm.
And really great guy. Well, he had two handicapped kids. And my father also, my father was into all kinds of stuff. And what he did as somebody who wanted to help his community and just as a teacher, and it's just an all around good person, he worked for the Ray Graham Association. And what he did is he was assigned to Mr. Martone's kids who were severely handicapped. And that's what my father did for extra money to support his family, was to take care of handicapped kids.
Yeah.
So, I used to hang out with them, but Mr. Martone was, busy working, and his wife was working, and it's I guess it's a lot of work taking care of special needs kids, obviously, and so we were kind of a part of the Martone family, um, and so we were always around them, and he was really great at cutting hair, so we would always go there to cut hair to get our haircuts, and so he would always cut my hair, and he would always buy me a chocolate donut and chocolate milk. And I mean, I must have been like, I don't know, whenever you start getting haircuts, 6, 5, something like that. I don't know,
Yeah.
somewhere around there. And I used to always stare at his arms, and I couldn't stop staring at his arms. And I always tried to touch his arms. Like, can I touch your arms? And he would make it move. I think Mr. Martone had I think he's the one who had the hula girl, and he'd make it move.
Yeah.
And it's, the classic story of the hula girl on the arm. And, I don't know where he was stationed, or, he was probably he's probably in Hawaii, stationed in Hawaii, or something, or maybe San Diego. And if I had to guess. And, that was it. I just was like, wow, that's permanent.
Hmm.
That's just so cool. There was this mystery, and there was this, I don't know, there was just something about it that I was drawn to. I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
I was just drawn to it. Um,
Man.
yeah, so that's it. And then what I would do is, to follow up on that, I would get a shoebox. I proceeded to put a shoebox together with permanent markers. The red, the green, the yellow, the blue, the black, and I would draw little designs on the inside of the lid, and I would just keep the markers in the box, and I would just draw designs around the box and on the box. And then when we were, all the kids in the neighborhood would play, I would draw all over the kids for like a quarter. And I did this for like 2 or 3 summers.
Wow, dude.
And everybody would go home for dinner, and then the parents would come back after dinner wanting their kids' quarters back, and yell at my mom and be upset with my mom, and give my mom some shit. And my mother would apologize, and I would come out and apologize. And my mother would close the door, and she would look at me, and she'd say, "Wow, that was beautiful. I love how you did that heart. Wow, that red was so beautiful." So she, when the door closed, she was really supportive.
Yeah.
But to the neighbors, she was apologetic and, understanding and sympathetic. And whatever you have.
Man, what a great combination. That's awesome. Yeah, that's just supporting you, not like shaming you. Yeah, telling you that your work is beautiful. That's huge. So you did the first one. How long until you started like working at a parlor yourself?
I think it was about. I was really. I was fresh out of high school.
Okay.
I had just turned 19,
Hmm.
and that's Henry.
He wants to join the podcast.
He does want to join the podcast. So I was probably 19. So I had, so throughout high school, I met a kid who had been in and out of juvenile detention.
Mhm.
And I was I was a kid who always questioned school, because I never felt that school inside. I always knew that school, uh, it didn't teach people how to think. It taught them what to think. And
Sure.
I always felt that in my heart. And I just never fit in. I never fit into school. I didn't like the structure. They treated everybody different. They treated everybody the same, but everybody was so different. And that never sat well with me. So I was the one who always asked questions. I guess, I was always the guy who was like, well, why do we have to do that? Why do we have to do this? And, to some people that could be taken as insubordination.
Right.
And, I asked enough questions to the, I guess the right people, I'd consider them the wrong people, and eventually landed myself in learning disability classes. I had a hard time paying attention. I would just draw all the time.
Yeah.
I was the kid in the class who could draw, and I would just draw. So the kids would be like, "Hey, can you draw me this? Could you draw me that?" I'd be like, "Yeah, sure." And so I'd spend my time drawing instead of, paying attention to my studies. Um, I wasn't smart enough to play the game. I just
Yeah.
did my own. I did my own thing. Eventually, I wised up, um, and was able to balance the two. So in high school, I met a kid who was in juvenile detention, and he taught me how to make a homemade tattoo prison machine with a DC motor. Like
Holy
a
cow.
cassette tape motor, because we would draw, and he was into it was just part of the culture. And so this kid and I were drawn to each other. He was like, "Oh, you can draw, I can teach you how to make a tattoo machine." And I was like, "Oh, that's cool." So he taught me how to make one with a big pen tube. You can look up prison machines, and he taught me how to make one. This was before the internet. So everything
Yeah.
was word of mouth. I was searching. So he taught me how to make one, and, you know, started doing that for a little while on myself, on some of my friends. It was a punk rock skateboarding scene.
Yeah.
So they were just itching to get all that stuff. And then eventually it escalated to, I think, junior year, maybe senior year in high school. I convinced one of the local hippie guys who I partied in high school, and one of the local biker hippie guys that would buy us alcohol. We'd go over to his house to hang out, and, he would tattoo us with his machines.
Wow.
And I convinced him to buy me a kit from the back of a magazine. So I paid him an extra $100, and he ordered me a kit from the back of a magazine. I had no clue what I was doing with the kit. He didn't even know what he was doing with his kit. And I
Yeah.
just kind of went at it, ignorantly, unfortunately. But I guess, we learned from our mistakes. And so towards the end of high school, I was just working on my friends out of my room.
Hmm.
And one of my friends didn't like the work I did on him, for obvious reasons. And
Yeah.
he went into the local shop, and the local shop looked at it, and he was like, "Hey, who did this?" He's like, "Oh, my buddy," and he goes, "They were hiring. They needed somebody." And, the guy looked at it, and he's like, "This is actually pretty good."
Wow.
Does he want a job? And so my bud rushed back to me and was like, "Hey, I went to go get your work touched up, and they actually were wondering if you could come in and talk to him." And I was like, "Yeah, of course." So I went in there, and, they basically threw me to the wolves. They were like, "We're going to give you a shot, sink or swim. You got a month." They kind of gave me a rundown of everything. I never had a formal or traditional apprenticeship. They basically were like, "This is how you keep things clean. This is what you got to do. This is how you do this. This is how you do that. You already seem to kind of have an idea of what you're doing. You know, we'll check back with you in a month. And that was the owner. So my boss was the guy who gave me the name Noodles, and I'll just leave the name of the shop out.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I was doing some work out of there just as I was in my room, and a month goes by, and I think 3 or 4 of the kind of the you know, the alpha tattooers of the group. I mean, there were 2 shops owned by the same guy, and there must have been 10 tattooers. But the 3 or 4 alpha guys were all in the same room with me in the shop with me. And I remember I did a lotus on a girl who was a server at a brewery, and I did the lotus right on her sternum.
Mm-hmm.
And I was sweating. You know, I had these 3 guys who were they'd been tattooing for 10, 15 years under me, or standing over me, saying stuff, making comments. And I just did it. And I mean, I laid that out under some really tough pressure. And I think that was, you know, that was the time whether I was able to keep or lose my job.
Yeah.
And when I finished with that tattoo, they didn't have anything to say.
Nice.
Except like, you know, all right, you damn, that's good.
Yeah.
You know, so, and looking back on it, I think it's just as good, if not better, than what any of them could have done.
Yeah.
And I think they were just kind of like, whoa, which was cool. It made me feel really good about myself, and it made me feel like, you know, I could move forward and doing it. And that's it. So they let me stick around. And then what happened is they really threw me to the wolves. They thought it'd be funny to, you know, since I could tattoo at that point, to a certain degree. They all went on vacation. Okay, now I couldn't get the job here, mind you, that I couldn't get the job unless I learned how to body pierce too. So I got a crash course in
Oh, wow.
I got a crash course in body piercing and tattooing.
Nice.
And then
Yeah.
after about 3 or 4 months, and them realizing that they could leave me alone, they all went to Florida to party for the summer, and they went down to like spring break, and then they took off for a couple months, and I ran the tattoo shop for a little over 2 months, almost 3 months, single-handedly.
Wow.
With only a few months experience, answering the phones, body piercing, and tattooing, all by myself.
Wow.
In a professional shop with a good name.
Yeah.
I still can't wrap my head around this whole thing. And I like to call it, I forgot who quoted this. I didn't come up with this myself, but it's called baptism by fire.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
And so that's the way I looked at it. So I was baptized by fire in tattooing.
Yeah.
And
Seriously, man.
And then I just never stopped.
That's great. Well, okay. I've always wondered this about, so they sent you to, they said, look, I saw your work, come on in, you know, we'll talk to you about stuff. How do you practice with the actual tattoo gun? Because I don't think it's called a gun. I don't know what you guys call it. I think you gave me a hard time about that maybe, but like you can be great with a pencil. You did a pencil since you were a kid, whatever, or colored pencils or markers, whatever. And then how does that just translate over? And you're not like practicing with the tool on like a rubber arm or anything, are you?
No, not at that time. Today they have, you know, you have fake skin.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, you have all kinds of stuff to practice with now. At that time, it was on my own leg. I did a lot on myself.
Yeah.
I have a very colorful leg.
I can imagine.
So a lot on myself, you know, because I could, you know, sit down, I could put my leg up.
Yeah.
Tattoo the side of my leg a lot. I did that, and I could take my time on myself. I knew what it felt like. So yourself is the best way to learn.
Because you feel it. So you know, if I go over this bone, here's how it's going to feel for someone if I'm doing it on them.
Yeah, the pressure of working on yourself, the thought of hurting yourself to some degree.
Yeah.
The thought of drawing on yourself permanently. There's a lot of variables that factor into that. So that's probably one of the best ways to learn. But I would say just for practice, a lot of people use grapefruit.
Grapefruit. Okay.
Because it's rounded and it's very similar in skin, in human skin in the sense that it's got pores. Um, it's rounded, it's kind of soft. If you were to grab the upper part of your arm and squeeze it, and
Yeah.
then grab a grapefruit, it's kind of similar in firmness and softness.
Yeah. Wow, man, that's
Hmm.
cool. I never thought of any of that. That's crazy. Okay, so something that we've talked about when I was getting my tattoos, one of the times, we talked about like the history of tattoos. Because I was asking you, it looks really Eastern. It looks really like some you got maybe Chinese dragons and stuff like that. And you were like, well, yeah, there's a reason for that. Can you just like lay out like where did tattoos come from in American culture?
Geez, I'm the wrong guy to ask about that. There's a million other guys that know a lot more about it than I do. Uh, oh, a lot of it came from sailing.
Yeah.
Um, the early nautical, sailors, they would go to, a lot of the westernized culture would sail off to the Eastern cultures, and they would do a lot of trading. And as we all know, history, there's a lot of trading and a lot of ships. And so, like in the South Pacific, you have like you have the um, you have the Borneo and a tribe on some islands down in the South Pacific, and they would carve into each other's skin, and then that's a whole thing in their culture that goes back hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. I don't, maybe even 1,000 years. I don't know. And those practices were witnessed through trading and then brought back to the Western world. But they were practiced all over those islands: Japan, Asia, uh, China. Um, then it was eventually adopted to the Western world. So
Yeah.
that's it. It was through trade. It was, as far as I know.
Yeah, that's what you were telling me before. It's so interesting
But
to think about. And once you think about that, the I don't you know the name of it, but like the classical look, the classical tattoo look with like some dragons and stuff like that, it starts to make sense. It's like, oh yeah, if that came from over there, that's why they have dragons and stuff like that.
sure,
Yeah.
yeah.
What's that? Do you know this? Are there different names? There's different names and styles for tattoos. Like, is there like a realistic? I know when someone gets one that looks crazy real, it's always like people get Joe Rogan ones that look just like Joe Rogan, and it looks just like him. It's not cartoony or anything. Is there a name for that, or is it just kind of you just know it when you see it?
Uh, I don't know. Everyone loves to stick things into boxes and
Right.
label everything, and
Mhm.
I mean, I guess it could. Some people would call that, traditional, neo-traditional, realistic, realism. It's like you could put any. I, it depends on it. I don't know. I don't know.
That's great.
I really don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know. I just
Yeah.
I can look at a tattoo and think to myself, well, that's a nice tattoo.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. I get the likeness. The likenesses of Joe Rogan. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
but some people could look at it and go like, wow, look at the lighting, and then, oh my gosh, look at those color tones. Or you can look at it and be like, oh, that looks like a cartoon. It depends who's doing it, who's wearing it. You know,
Right.
the
Yeah.
viewer. It's all subjective, but
Yeah.
usually it comes down to realistic or traditional.
Yeah.
So
So like if someone goes to your shop, are there different shops that are known for different types of tattoos? Like some people will be more in the classical and others are just really, really into, hey, we can put that face looks just we can make a
yeah.
realistic face on you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Sure. Um, it's since its popularity in the past 15 years, it's really gotten. I mean, I got into it because it was a fringe thing.
Right.
I got into it because everyone told me not to get into it, and I was always fascinated with it. I said, "Wow, this is really cool. I can do this, and I can support myself, and the world will leave me alone."
Yeah.
And I like that. Um, it was just, I was just drawn to it, uh, and I think tattooers were mostly like people who were really into it would kind of dabble in everything. They would, do some portraits here or there. They would do some eagles here and there. But there was a way to approach it. And yeah, these days, I mean, yeah, you have shops that specifically, you go to them to get a portrait. If you
Okay.
want to get a portrait of a loved one, you can go to somebody to get that. If you want to specifically get something that's Asian themed and you want an Asian bodysuit, yeah, there's shops that you go to get that.
Okay.
There's some shops that have a really diverse group of tattooers who, you'll have one guy who's really good with portraits. You'll have another guy that's really good with Asian or Japanese. You'll have another guy that's really good with traditional, but usually the Asian and the traditional American stuff kind of cross over quite a bit.
Yeah.
And it's just versatility, and it depends on the individual. Some individuals have a lot of versatility. Some are very pigeonholed into what they do. And, that's when you have to kind of, did you hear that?
Yeah.
Sorry
Oh,
about that.
no, I didn't hear. I heard you. Yeah, we're good.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool. I just got a notification. I wasn't sure if that came up. Anyway, so yeah, there are shops. For instance, there's a shop not too far from mine. This fella owns it. Really nice guy, and I've known him for years. And he's, he does a lot of portrait work. And we used to have a lot of people asking us for portrait work. And if about 5 years after we opened, he opened up on the other side of town. I remember when he opened up, he came over and was like, "Hey, I'm just want to let you know I'm opening up on the other side of town." And I was like, "Cool. Do you need some help?" And he's not opening up next to me, so that's cool.
Right. Right.
But he's a nice guy, and he gives a good. I feel like he gives, like he does beautiful work, and he's a nice guy, and I think he really cares about tattooing.
Mhm.
So it's nice to have him in town because he's very good at portraits. So when people come to me and they're like, "Hey, I want to get a portrait," I've done plenty of portraits. I can do portraits, but I send them to him
Yeah.
because that's what he does. And I have to. I don't know. It's just not. It's not. I have enough. I feel like I have a very healthy clientele of people who want the stuff that I'm more interested in doing.
Yeah.
Than to kind of let my ego take over and go, "Oh, I could do that." I can do it, but I don't want to. There's a
Yeah.
guy who does it. As far as I'm concerned, there's a guy who does it just as well, if not better. 2 minutes up the road.
Yeah.
So if I feel that their heart's in the right place and they're really genuine about getting a beautiful portrait, I'll say, "Well, here's his number. Just let him know I sent you over." And that's kind of that.
Yeah. That's really cool, man. I've always loved that about you, that you're just a chill dude, and you're not going for anyone's jugular or anything like that. And it makes sense that you would send them there. I think also something that's really cool about tattooing and the whole culture is you see a different side of what's going on in our society than the rest of us. So like you could say, yeah, 15 years ago people started getting this, or portraits just started coming through, and more people asked for portraits. And maybe you don't have all the reasons for why, but you have this like thumb on the pulse of the culture, like, well, something's changing. When you'd mentioned you got into it because it was kind of a subculture thing. Would you say it's now tattoos are like mainstream? Is there still some kind of subculture to it, or um and if it is more mainstream, like, does that hurt a little bit? Like your subgroup of people has been diffused out to the rest of the culture?
That's a good question. I think you get the hardliners who are like, keep tattooing cool and,
Mm.
keep it underground, keep it cool. Like there's people who hate these podcasts. There's tattooers who just think that these podcasts they're like, don't talk about that. The fact that I even mentioned that you can practice on a grapefruit, I'd probably catch fire for that from some
Okay.
people, but I don't really care.
Yeah.
So there's a secretive it's there's a lot of, that's what they call, I don't know, it's difficult to explain, but I don't think I have enough time to explain it. But it's definitely gotten more mainstream.
Hmm.
And I think that's been a good thing and it's been a bad thing.
Yeah.
And there is a subculture, there's still a subculture of tattooers who don't post anything on the internet. They don't show any of their work on the internet because what was really fun about tattooing when I started, the internet was just dawning. And when I started, there was no computer.
Mhm.
We had a phone and a Xerox machine.
Yeah.
We had to draw everything, or it was off the walls. You just had to pick it off the walls. Um, and what was cool about that is that you would see a tattoo done. I would see a tattoo done, and I'd go, "Wow, who did that? I want to get tattooed by that guy. I want to
Hmm.
learn something from that guy." And I would go and I would search out that tattooer and find out where they are. I remember I saw this tattoo from this one fellow who worked in the area, and I was like, "Man, I want to go get tattooed by that guy. I want to learn something from that guy." So I seeked him out and got tattooed by him. I actually learned a lot from him, and that's how you would grow and learn as a tattooer, is that you had to go and get tattooed by different people to understand more about tattooing, because it's you know it's different opinions, different ways of working, things like that.
Yeah.
And that's why you work with other people, so you can grow. So that was fun. Now you can just go online, you can look at everything, and you can just basically figure out someone's shtick or what they're doing, their tricks, however they apply their tattoos, amongst other things, rather than actually getting to know them, creating
Mm.
a small relationship with them. But in the end, it's still just a tattoo.
Yeah.
Just get tattooed by people you like, whose tattoos you like. Um,
Yeah.
so, did that answer your question?
Yeah. Yeah. That does. So I want to go in a little bit deeper into like the personal level too. So when you're sitting there with somebody, I mean, you got a big opportunity to talk with them, to get to know them, and see them under duress, see how they act when they're getting when pain happens, and all sorts of stuff. Do you feel like do you feel like it gives you a unique perspective on people, or is it the same kind of thing you could experience, selling hot dogs as a street vendor?
Jeez.
Not, I mean, for all the hot dog vendors out there, like, oh, I love you guys. I'm not trying to bag on anybody, but to me, I
Sure.
would think it's a unique experience. And you and I have had like great conversations when I was under the gun, or whatever you call it.
Yeah, a lot of people call them machines. Some
Machines.
people,
There we go.
I like that saying, under the gun. But again, who's here to correct anybody else, right? It's just like, it is what it is. Everyone
Yeah.
looks at things differently.
Right.
Um, I don't think I understand that. So,
So yeah, does tattooing someone give you a perspective? Does it let you under the hood of that person, or?
oh yeah, oh, absolutely, oh yeah, yeah. The strangers are putting an immense amount of trust in us.
Hmm,
Immense amount of trust. I mean, there's people I've never met who are letting me carve into their bodies. That's a responsibility that I certainly respect.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
people open up, like, people like to tattooers get upset because I've heard tattooers get upset because they're like, well, we're not therapists. People treat us like therapists,
Right.
because people open up to us. When you're trusting us to do this to your skin, I mean, people dump a lot of their personal stuff into this, you know, and it's like, well, we're not getting paid like therapists. We can't run your insurance.
Right.
So
Well, and oftentimes they're getting, it's a rest in peace, grandma or something, and there's like a lot of personal significance to the tattoos. So I'm
sure.
sure that's coming out as well too.
Faith, yeah, people's faith, people's family, um, and there's other things. Tattoos are just fun and cool looking. High energy tattoos have always been really neat to me, and the skulls and daggers and
Yeah.
eagles and tough tattoos, and I always liked all that stuff. That was stuff that we weren't supposed to be into, we weren't supposed to like. It was that subculture, it was that fringe, and that was the stuff that I was always attracted to.
Yeah.
Um, So, sometimes, I think a lot of people come in wanting to get tattoos that are these, personal mementos, and that's cool. They can mean whatever they want to anybody. But sometimes I think a cool looking tattoo with meaning is a shot in the right direction.
Hmm.
I think some people come in with stuff that's, so they're so tied to it emotionally,
Yeah.
that it's like, it's, oh, I want to memorialize somebody. It's like, that's cool. But other people are like, this is for so and so because they died. And I'm like, okay. And it all depends on how the person looks at it, because I
Right.
don't understand why people want to constantly remind themselves of a tragedy or something sad that happened.
Yeah.
You know, and then on the other hand, you get people who want to get that because they learned from it. So
Mm.
everybody looks at things differently. Does that answer your question?
It does. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So when I came in, I got I don't know if it'll show up on camera here, but it says, I think, therefore, and then it's Hebrew, Ehyeh, it's I am. So, I'm not calling myself God. Some people will say that. No, I'm saying if I'm able to think, then God exists. And I got it as I love it. It kind of represents this Christian philosopher's thought that I really love, Cornelius Van Til. And there's all different types of arguments that can be used to flesh this out. I love it. And then it's a great conversation starter because people are always like, what does that mean? Is that Hebrew? Descartes, all sorts of stuff like that. So we were talking, and while you were doing this, and we're talking about God, we're talking about faith, and at that point, I mean, would you call yourself an atheist? That was 2016. We were kind of debating some stuff.
I was atheist curious. Yeah, I
Okay.
was certainly somebody who had a lot of questions.
Yeah.
I had a
And
lot of questions, and I think it's healthy to have those kind of questions. And at that time, I would say that I certainly broke I certainly denounced Christ, absolutely,
okay.
without a doubt. I'm
Yeah.
happy to admit that.
Yeah. And so like we're going back and forth on some, like, they didn't know about science back then. And we're just,
Hmm.
I studied apologetics and stuff. So we're going, but I'm also sweating because I'm like, he's doing my tattoo. I don't want to make him mad, and he's gonna, but you did an
Yeah,
awesome job on it. So I
thanks.
came back and I was like, I just love the way you interacted with me and with tattoos and how you made it your own. And you were like, hey, can I change this? Can I make it look like this? And it was a really cool, like, relationship we sparked up because I had this thing I really wanted, but I was like, I'm gonna let you. You're the master here, man. So you took it over, and so I like that. So I came back for my second one, which is oh man, I don't know if I can get the angle. It's Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? It's from one of the one of the early covers, and it's an android, and there's sheep coming out of one side, and there's gears on the other, and I think it's awesome. I've had it as my background for years, and I just want to look at it all the time. So I came in for that one with you, and you sounded like totally different. You were asking me about like Babylon Bee and stuff like that, and just
Oh
a
man, those guys are great.
yeah, dude. It was just a different conversation, and it ended up taking a little bit longer because we kept talking. I kept on talking your ear off while you're trying to do my tat here. Uh,
Huh, that was
Man,
great.
what changed? I mean, I know what changed, but you
Uh,
went from, like, renouncing Christ. Your dad's an Orthodox priest, and you're kind of rebelling against that. It seemed like, to then, I mean, now you're
Absolutely,
you're a Christian, dude.
absolutely. I've always been.
Yeah.
And when I said earlier, the last thing I said was I was happy to denounce him. The reason I was happy to denounce him, because if I wasn't happy at that time, I don't think I'd be where I am right now.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, like it's part of the journey, and like you needed that
Part of the
low
journey.
to yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of a rock bottom point for me,
Yeah.
because there was nothing there. I was searching for answers and I wasn't getting any.
Mm,
And the only place I could go is up at that point.
sure.
Um, so yeah, there was a lot of frustration, a lot of anger, a lot of frustration. I've always kind of been a rebellious person, as I had mentioned earlier. Just, there's always people who want to teach you, what to think, not how to think, kind of thing.
Totally. Totally.
Um, so, what was the pivotal point in that? I think it was my mother.
Hmm.
Um, my mother never gave up on me.
Yeah.
And my father never gave up on me. There's something to be said about a two-parent home, and I
Mhm.
know people can't control that, but there's really something to be said about a two-parent home, and the combination of a mother and a father who really cared about me, and continuously um, took care of me, prayed for me constantly, knowingly prayed for me, and never gave up on me when I was going through really difficult times, um, began to resonate with me at an older age, especially when I started to come back full circle,
Yeah.
to the way I was raised.
Yeah.
I went to the opposite end of the spectrum and there was nothing there.
Hmm.
I didn't feel fulfilled. I didn't feel like I was getting any knowledge. I felt, there was more knowledge, more things to learn through patience, understanding, virtue, faith, those all the things that the Bible basically teaches.
Yeah.
So that started drawing me back, and it was always there for me. And I guess I would be called a church brat.
Okay.
I was always brought to church. I was always forced to go to church. It was always pushed on me and pushed on me and pushed on me. And when I say forced, it was, I always had to go. My father was a priest. I grew up having to go to church constantly, and not just go to church for what a lot of Westerners would call, Christmas and Easter.
Yeah.
It's not just eggs and candy and wrapped presents. It was like I would go for, we venerate saints in Orthodoxy.
Uh-huh.
Every single day we have to venerate a saint.
A lot of saints, man. A lot of saints out there.
There's a ton of saints. So, there was always something special going on, and it was just so much to take in that it just confused me and just made me, just want to push it away.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then eventually, my dad passed a few years ago, and, we had some good talks. He got, real sick, and we had some good talks, and, I think you really have to experience some really deep loss, to kind of learn new things about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, I think you can learn a lot from loss, and that was it. I guess that was kind of a pivotal point, was that my mom never gave up, and my father never gave up, and they always had something there for me. It was always on the table, and I always turned it away. But when I started to reach out and take it, and I felt like I was getting answers. I felt more fulfilled. I felt, I was getting what I was looking for.
Yeah.
And it's neat to, as going back to tattooing, part of what I do is a lot of crosses. You do a lot of, this is Wheaton, DuPage area, right?
Right.
I do a lot of crosses, a lot of Hebrew, stuff like that. And, my job's to do them good. And so even when I wasn't, enthusiastic about how I was raised spiritually, I still did a great job on them.
Right.
And there was still something inside me that said, this is a really important thing to this person. This is their faith. And even though it wasn't my faith at the time, or I didn't embrace that at the time, it was still important for me to do a great job because it was important to them. And then it's full circle. Then it comes back to, well, there's a reason that I look at it this way. And it's, oh, wow, this person, this is really important to them. Maybe I should look further into this. So it was seeing people who were confused and angry, grasping their faith through tattoos, in the sense that made me go, well, maybe I should take a closer look at this again. Maybe I should go back and do some more research into what I'm missing.
Wow. Dude, that's crazy. That's like tattoo evangelism through tattoos. That's wild.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
And there are some out there that do that. There's like tattooers who won't do anything that's, dark or devilish or anything like that. And I'm just like, I don't know. Like, there's nothing. I mean, I don't. People go, is there anything you won't tattoo? It's like, well, I guess I could say is there anything I won't tattoo? No, it depends on the individual. Everybody wants to categorize and box people in again. And it's like, is there anything I want to tattoo? Well, the last thing I said no to was a swastika.
Okay.
And I wasn't interested in doing it.
Yeah.
I wasn't interested in doing it. It was that guy's right to wear it. It's his it's his bodily autonomy if he wants to do that to his body. The reason that I said no were for a number of reasons. But funny enough, I just wasn't interested in doing it because I don't think it was a good symbol. It wasn't done under, something. It wasn't done for positive reasons. And I do satanic tattoos on some kids.
Mm-hmm.
I have no problem doing them. Like, I tattooed a Baphomet on this one guy. I tattooed, I'll do the pentacles, the stars. Like, I don't care if that's what you want to do to your body, and I'm not going to try to talk you out of it. So if people want to get evil stuff on them, that's their business. I have to remove myself from it. But I said no to a swastika because the guy his skin sucked. He was a heavy smoker. So his skin was really bad. He smelled bad. He was, he was in the trades. I think, he was one of the trades guys. And, I don't know if he was doing it just to test me or if he really wanted it done, but I just said no because he smelled bad. He had bad skin. And I'm like, well, you know what? First of all, I don't even want to tattoo that. I'm not even interested. I'm not interested in tattooing that. But the fact that he smelled and he was kind of a dick.
Yeah.
Can I say that? Yeah.
Just did, man.
And he's just kind of a jerk. And
Yeah.
like, I don't want to work with this person. I don't want to engage with this person. I don't want to have a conversation with this person. I'm not interested in learning from this person because I've been down those roads and I don't want to go down the road with this person.
Yeah.
And that was it. So he got mad. And if you do it on one, people like that gravitate towards each other. You tattoo one person like that,
Yeah.
you're going to get their friends. And then
Sure.
their friend's going to want you to do it. And then they're going to start hanging out. And, my place isn't a hangout for a bunch of guys wanting to get swazis. I don't want to do them. I'm not interested in them.
No, that's a great point too, man, because I've had so many people, because I'm in deep into many different Christian like subcultures, and they see my tattoos and they love them, and I always tell them about you. So like it's the same thing. Like it's the whole community kind of comes in when you do good work, and I tell them about your story and stuff. I tell them about the awesome conversations we have. And just the other day, someone was like, "Oh, let me who did that? Like I need to talk with that guy," because I was telling them about how, man, we've had great conversations and how between 4 years, I've seen you go from like dude way over here to way over here. And even though the whole time it was still you, right? So you've had like a radical, transformation or coming back to the faith. You're still you, like you're still the kind, awesome dude that I really loved when you did this tattoo. You're just more of that person now, which is awesome. It's sick, dude. I love that.
Thanks. Yeah. Yeah. People are getting people will find out that I'm Orthodox, and I'm getting more people requesting me now for Coptic Orthodox tattoos, Christian tattoos. So now there's this little subculture of people of friends who are like, that guy over there is, that guy over there did my cross for me and he's Christian.
Yeah.
So what's happening is that's personal. I try not to open up too much. I'm just not the guy who's going to sit there and wave a flag. But if you ask me, I'm not going to deny anything about who I am or how I feel or what I believe spiritually. It's just that simple. I know you didn't ask any more questions and we're running out of time. But what seems to have been really cool the past few years, and I don't know why, on social media, is the depiction of, and I never see anybody talk about this, the depiction of burning churches. It's cool. If you look up burning churches tattoos, they are all over the place.
Huh.
They never get taken down. It's like a cool thing to do. It's like, it's cool to tattoo burning churches, and it was cool. I mean, 2 or 3 years ago, they were just all over the place. I still see them on Instagram from people, and I have to scratch my head because I think to myself, had that been a mosque or a synagogue, that would have gotten taken down so fast, and that person would have been ridiculed like crazy as some anti-Semite or hate monger or Nazi. And you just think to yourself, I think to myself, it solidifies how I feel through Christianity even more, because Christians always seem to get beat up on constantly made fun of, constantly barraged, constantly mocked. And if you say it about any other faith, whoa, don't do that, off limits.
Yeah.
And so it's always, every time I see a burning church tattoo, which if that's what people want, that's another thing I won't tattoo.
Okay.
I won't tattoo. Basically, I guess that's the line, is when I say I'll do anything, it's like, well, I'm not going to you know, if people want to get a satanic tattoo, that's that's whatever, that's their business. But when it comes to crapping on other people's faiths, and hateful tattoos, I'm really not interested in that.
Okay. Yeah.
Uh,
No, it
so
makes a lot of sense. Well, dude, as we close up here, I know my audience pretty well, and they're going to be really interested in just hearing about the orthodoxy that you practice. We don't know a lot. Like I've got a pretty strong evangelical audience, a lot of Catholics as well. Can you tell us a little bit, like what kind of Orthodox are you?
well, Orthodox in itself means true believer.
Yeah, yeah.
And at one point in time, the Roman Catholics, which are the Western Catholics, and the Eastern Catholics, which are known as the Orthodox, used to be one church. So you can YouTube it, you can look it up. It's called the Great Schism.
Yep.
And basically, the Orthodox are very, to put it in a nutshell, and I hate to do this because I know my dad would, frantically be upset with me if I said something that he didn't agree with. But
Yeah.
we venerate the saints. We venerate the Mother of God through painting, iconography. If you look up iconography,
Yeah, you guys are big on. You go inside and there's icons all over the great the cloud of witnesses. You guys take that really seriously. Yeah.
We are. The reason that when you come into our church you don't see any drums or guitars is because we believe that the greatest instrument given to us by God is our voice. So we only sing and we only chant. And so we're kind of old school. We're very old school.
Yeah.
In that sense, we're very much about the music in the sense of the voice. We're very, we glorify through our artwork, and so that's a really cool thing. And whereas when you go into a Western Catholic church, you just see basically a crucifix hanging in the front, and that's about it. And you see some stained glass and stuff like that. But man, you go into an Orthodox church, I mean, the walls are all hand painted, and
Yeah.
there's a meditative state to worshiping through art, and that's why I've come back to it. Is not only I was really fortunate to be raised in it, because a lot of people don't know about it unless you know about it.
Yeah.
So I think that's why my dad really liked it. We converted from Catholics, Roman Catholics.
Okay.
My family were my father and my mother were both raised Roman Catholic, and they converted to Orthodoxy in the late 70s.
Okay. Yeah, it is like the exact opposite. So if you go to like non-denom, it's like loud music, drums, and nothing on the walls, and probably in an old warehouse. So it's like the exact inverse of you guys. Like Orthodox, like I'm an Orthodox Christian, but I'm not an Orthodox Christian, right? I believe in Orthodoxy and the tenets of, what makes you a Christian. I believe the gospel. I believe in the two natures of Christ and the Trinity. So, are you? People always go Eastern Orthodox, and we don't really understand that a ton here. But like, there's Greek, there's Russian, there's all sorts of flavors. Like, do you fall into one of those types of Eastern Orthodox, I guess?
Well, what we have is we don't have a mass. We have what's called the liturgy. And the liturgy was, I believe, rewritten by St. John Chrysostom, and that goes across the board. So whether you're Russian, Greek,
okay.
It's all the same liturgy, and it's practiced the same. We're very ritualistic, I guess you could say. Orthodox are very ritualistic, and in that way, there has been a gathering of the Orthodox, what's called OCA, which is the Orthodox Church of America. So you can, the liturgy is the same through and through.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
It does make sense, man. So I guess I didn't know that. My sister went to a Russian Orthodox church for a while. I didn't know that you guys all had the same liturgy. So if
There's little variances,
sure. If you were attending like a Russian Orthodox church and you were traveling and there's a Greek one, down the road, you could stop in and you guys are still going to be on the same track throughout the church calendar.
Absolutely. We celebrate the Julian calendar
Huh?
rather than the Gregorian calendar.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
dude, that's crazy. That's awesome. I guess I never put together the tattooing with you and the art of the Orthodox Church, because I've seen, I don't know if I've personally been inside an Orthodox church, but I've seen like YouTube videos and stuff of just beautiful hand painted drawings of Saint Veneration and seeing the great cloud of witnesses. That makes a lot of sense though, dude. That makes so much sense for you being this dude who is destined to tattoo, being in the Orthodox Church growing up, and then God bringing you back into that church.
There's another tattooer in Washington, and there's a tattooer an Orthodox tattooer in Washington who actually paints icons pretty regularly that I
Hmm.
follow. I can't remember his name, but I've been getting more into starting to do that in my artwork, and I'm just again I found a new path in that sense that I'm religious iconography has always been a part of tattooing, but I don't see a lot of first off Orthodox tattooers, or if I do see very Christian tattooers, they're ethnically more Hispanic based, so they do
Sure.
a lot more of the like westernized, like the Guadalupe Mary and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But I don't see a lot of Orthodox stuff um, as tattoos. So you know, that, I don't know. Is that another niche? I don't know. It's just something I'm exploring.
Yeah, man, that's
Just for
cool.
now,
Yeah.
whatever.
Well, dude, this has been fantastic. Thanks for sharing about your dad and his passing and your mom and everything, man. Thanks for sharing about your journey into tattoos, and it's so awesome to hear how God's been working in your life. It's awesome to hear that you're still out there doing tattoos. For anyone who's interested, I'll put the link in the description to your website. And dude, I hope you get a big bump. I hope you're like completely overwhelmed by the amount of people who want your tattoos now. All the Orthodox folks listening, go to him. That'd be awesome. Um, thanks, man. Thanks. Like, where can people? I'll put the link in the description. But like, can you promote yourself here? Where can people find your stuff?
Well, I mean, just noodlestattoo.com.
Mhm.
You can go there. That's the website to the shop. The shop is in Warrenville, Illinois, right up the street from, Holy Transfiguration Orthodox Church, which I've been to once. Um, so it's right up the street from there. But you can go online to, I don't know, Instagram is Noodles Tattoo Shop and
Yeah.
Noodles Tattooer, Noodles underscore tattooer. But you can pretty much Google search and you will find me almost instantaneously.
Yeah, for sure. That's
So
awesome, man. Well, I'm excited. I'm excited to get another one from you. I think we're gonna do a frog or a snapping turtle, something like that, coming up here. That'd be awesome. So, for all the audience, you guys stay tuned. I'll show you when I get it, and it'll be awesome. So, that's gonna have to do it for now. This has been so much fun. This has been Parker's Pensées, and as always, all glory to God.